Okay, so today I wanted to make a different kind of video than my usual, news facts, YouTube short videos. So I actually wanted to give my commentary on something that I've noticed in the games industry. So Microsoft has hit a $3 trillion market value, and that's one thing that people have been bringing up, that Microsoft seems to be doing extremely well, but at the same time they've decided to shut down 4 game studios this week. And so another thing that I've also seen, coming more from Microsoft's side of things, is that while it may appear like a lot of games are doing well, they're making money, they're making profit. One that we're going to really discuss a lot more in detail is HiFi Rush. Even though the games seem to be doing well, they're not giving Xbox like the right kind of growth that they're trying to reach, which from what I've seen looks like it could break down to like 2 different aspects. One obviously being growth as in net profit, after all the expenses are calculated for, how much money are these games bringing in. So that's one aspect of growth. A second aspect of growth that I think is like a way to get to the first aspect is growth in players, and growth just in how many people are buying video games, how many people are engaging with these products. So now a real important video, if you want to get some more details straight from Xbox's side of things. So go on Google and you type in Bloomberg TV Sarah Bond, and you should be able to find this interview where Sarah Bond, the president of Xbox, is explaining some of what she says what's going on with game studios and just the games industry in general. So basically, in this video, she goes on to say that the industry is not growing. It's really heavily emphasized that the industry is in some kind of transition, which I cannot really clarify. She says the industry is in some kind of transition and the industry is just not growing. So an example of what that is that I think it was like last year they came out with a Harry Potter Hogwarts Legacy game that brought in just a ton of money, and that was like during their first quarter that they were seeing just a huge amount of money coming in. Now this year during that same time, their first quarter, they're not seeing a larger number of money come in than they did last year, is basically what they mean by growth. Each year, these companies have to produce more money than they did last year to satisfy the shareholders. But the TLDR is every single year, if Xbox makes $200 million in the first quarter, then the next year they need to make $300 million, and so on and so forth. Another thing she goes into is that the amount of money and the amount of time that it takes to produce these video games has gone up. And that kind of brings me back to HiFi Rush, because it is a very beautiful game, and it was a very successful game from all public mentions of it, But looking deeper into HiFi Rush and Tango Studios, it seems like the game was in development for about 6 years. At the very least, there's a mention of... or at the very least in a tweet, he mentions how HiFi Rush was pitched back in 2017 to Bethesda. But basically, the game has been in development for, at the very least, a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. And Tango Studios, who created HiFi Rush, from what I've seen in 2012, had 65 people working there, which people could have came, left, the studio could have grown, shrank. But the main point is, this isn't a small studio of people working on a game for, a couple of years. This was a fairly sizable studio with at least 5 years, give or take. And the number that I was able to find for the gross revenue for this game, which was on VGinsights.com, was $16.9 million. Now, completely factoring in the possibility that, these numbers might not necessarily be completely accurate, the main picture I'm trying to put together is that this might not have been the most financially successful game. The game probably, at least made more money than it cost to make. But at the same time, I imagine the cost of having, 60-some employees that you're paying over 5 years to develop a game that only retailed for $30 might not be the most attractive revenue if you're a company trying to make the most profit out of creating video games. And now then the second aspect to this, which came to me while I was trying to dig deep and I was watching this video with Sarah Bond, was the whole aspect of growth, not just in dollar amounts, but also in growth of player base. So HiFi Rush, from what I've been reading, is a rhythm-based game. So I imagine you do combat, but it's kind of matched up with beats or something like that. But the point is, I've never played this game before, and it's not because there's anything wrong with the game. It looks like it's a very beautiful game. It looks like a very innovative game. It's a type of game that I'd like to see more of, aesthetic-wise anyways. But the type of playstyle, it's just not something that I would pick up and play. And I think therein lies one of the other main issues for why Xbox decided to close down Tango Studio, and that's that the game doesn't really have a mass appeal. It's not something that everybody's going to want to pick up and play. And I personally think that that's perfectly fine. I know a lot of people really love rhythm games, and just because I don't like it doesn't mean, it shouldn't exist. Go ahead and, like what you like. But obviously I think the fear is you invest a lot of money in one studio for a long period of time, and the final output is something that only appeals to a niche audience, and at the same time, for whatever reason the game is priced at $30, so you're not even getting like a full $60 price tag on the game that comes out after this long development time and cost. The need for them to continuously grow and create more money for shareholders is also putting them in a position where they're going to obviously take the safe road. What I'm saying isn't anything new. So what we're probably going to see is just a continuation of, first-person shooters, sports games, open world games, and now more live service games. But in order to get like really unique video game experiences, like the one that you would get out of HiFi Rush, it's probably going to become a little bit more rare in the coming years from like a game studio like Microsoft, while indie developers start to fill in that niche again, creating new unique experiences. Microsoft's not going to do as good for a little while until they decide to start purchasing up all of these like small development companies. Then they'll bring them up, and then the next time they don't meet their quarterly goals, they're just going to go ahead and start shutting down studios again. And then we'll turn back to indie developers until those indie developers get bought out by larger companies, and then those larger game companies end up shutting down those studios, and the cycle starts all over again. But I don't really know what we can do as gamers. We'll spend our money on things that we like, and that kind of dictates where the market goes. But when big industries are involved, it kind of definitely skews and sways the way things work out for game studios. Hopefully there's some way that Tango Studios can end up working with or developing their own independent game studio. But even some people have expressed that that's not really like the most simple transition from working for a big game company to then going on your own and having to finance everything all by yourself. But that's about as good as my wrap-up can be for right now. I'm going to keep tabs on this story, and I'm going to keep my eyes open on different interesting things going on. There's a lot of generative AI stuff that has come up recently that I'm going to get into. Also, I'd like to keep tabs on some of these game studios that were recently let go and kind of see like where they end up at, or figure out what does it look like for them afterwards. Are they able to pick up the pieces and rebuild themselves into something different, or is that it? Do they lose their jobs and then they all break up into different companies, and the whole mystery gang has to go their separate ways? I don't know. So hit like, this is a new channel. This is kind of like my second foray into making content. So if you like what you saw, hit subscribe, and I'll continue to make videos about video game news. And hopefully next week I'll make another one of these kind of like opinion editorial pieces to give you kind of like a little bit more perspective on how I'm seeing things. Anyways, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.